Well, it's an honor for me to be here tonight. It's the 40th anniversary of the OCDC Oregon Child Development Commission. So I think this is a good honor and we all should applaud to this. We are going to have a wonderful program for you this evening. I want to thank the Oregon Zoo for providing us with the animal display earlier this evening. I hope you all take pictures with them. And we also want to thank the mariachi band for the great music. Un aplauso para el mariachi. And today would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. Gold sponsors, U.S. Bank. Please a round of applause for U.S. Bank. The silver sponsors, Modern Building Systems, and thank you so much for your support, and Beecher Carlson Insurance Agency, HealthNet of Oregon, where are they? Oregon Cherry Growers Incorporated. The bronze sponsors are Scott Edwards Architecture, Kaplan ELC, Philadelphia Insurance, Office of Multicultural Health and Services, Pacific Office Automation, National Education System, Cochrane, and table sponsors, Multnomah County Multipurpose Committee, ISO Public Relations and Marketing, Dan and Kate Erickson, Barry Littman LLP, Employment and Labor Law Firm, Silverton Health, Cesar Chavez Leadership Conference, Ed and Donalda Danza, Phil and Jennifer Olson. Thank you all so much for your support. So we all are here this evening to celebrate OCDC's 40 years of serving some of Oregon's most vulnerable children and families. So to kick off this evening and to welcome all of you, we have a special guest. Our next speaker has over 39 years experience in management and administration of public health programs. The majority of her work, has been in the area of maternal and child health in the public sector. Donalda has held leadership administrative positions at the county and state level, including administrative and fiscal oversight for the state WIC program, child and adolescent health, prenatal and women's health, oral health, and immunization. She brings expertise in leadership, community collaborations, partnerships building, promotion of diversity, and advocacy at state and national level. Will you please join me in welcome Donalda Batson.
Thank you. That was kind of like a review of my past life. I've been at OCDC now for 6 years, and it seems as though your history just follows you no matter where you go. But I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to our 40th and to thank you for taking your time to share this great event with us. We're so excited to be able to see so many here to share this with us. But I'd also want to be able to acknowledge that this would not be possible but without some key people that support us at OCDC. First of all is our board of directors. As a nonprofit, our board of directors help set our course, they keep us on track, and I'd like to have Grant Baxter and the board please stand to be acknowledged. Thank you. another key aspect of services at OCDC is that service that's done with our parents. And one of the key groups that supports us and does keep us on track and be sure, that helps us to be sure that we're serving the needs of the families and the children is our Policy Council. Our Policy Council is made up of parents and community representatives. And could I have them stand, and Kay Ortega as the chair? Thank you. I was going to ask all those that helped to make this event possible stand, but I think the whole room would stand, because we truly have had an army that has helped us to be sure that we could pull this thing off. As many of you know, our primary focus is migrant and seasonal Head Start as well as Oregon Free Kindergarten. So our busy time is now. So summer and early fall are when most of our programs are really gearing up in full force. So staff did all of those kinds of things to serve the children and the families as well as to bring this event to fruition tonight. So thank you for all of you that did all of that work, because I know I can't name all of you because we would be here for the next 20 minutes. So thank you for that. As you may have noticed from the display outside, Oregon Child Development Coalition was conceived out of a tragedy with the death of a small child. And this happened in one of the fields in one of our areas. But out of that, it came a result of OCDC. So OCDC was born out of a tragedy, but it was also born out of a caring and committed community. When you talk to the founders of OCDC, which we've talked with one of them, a young woman, she's in her 80s now, and she said, we just saw that there was a need, and we said, let's just get this done. Let's just do something. And she is still living in the same community, and she was able to come to our local celebration of the event, but due to her own mobility, wasn't able to join us tonight. But I thought it was interesting that she said, we just said, let's do it. And so by her just letting other people come together and getting it done, this was born. So in keeping with that tradition of community involvement and commitment, I was wondering, and reflecting back on the last 40 years, I thought, well, what have we done over those 40 years that made all of those efforts worthwhile? How did we get to where we are now? So in thinking of that, I was thinking, what could I do to tell you about this great journey that we've taken and how we got to this point? We got from having children in the fields and making available to them childcare. Sometimes that childcare was done in a room such as this with mats on the floor and toys and things around, but there was no organized program. But the children were safe and they were secure, and their parents could go to work knowing that those children would be cared for. One of the stories that one of the counties told us, which would make some of our regulating people a little nervous, was that 40 years ago when we wanted to pick up children, we just picked them up in a van. And the little babies, there were no such things as car seats as we have now. So the babies were put in things like bathtubs and scooted under the seats, and then the other children sat on the seats and squeezed together until it was full. But the children came to school, and we took care of them, and then at night we took them back home. Now, nowadays we know that, as you saw from the pictures, children are in their car seats, they have their harnesses, every child has its seat, and we're sure that we're following all those regulations to take those children where they need to be. But I thought it was interesting how, just to get it done, that's how they got it done. The children needed to be transported, we couldn't have babies rolling around in the van, so we put them in bathtubs. We're ingenious on how to make those things work. So I was also wondering, okay, what do I want to say to help you see what we've done over this 40 years? And one of the things that came to my mind is a saying that is asked in an African community when they're wondering, how are they doing? How are they doing as a village? how are the people doing? And one of the things that they ask themselves is, how are the children? And I thought that was so appropriate for we here at OCDC, because almost daily we're always asking ourselves, how are the children? And then we tend to tack on the other phrase, and how are the families? So in looking back at where we've come from and where we're going, it seemed to me that that question was one that would be good for me to share with you. How are the children at OCDC? How are they at our village of OCDC? And so in looking at that, I wanted to put that in context and think about children in general. We know that these are hard economic times, and we know that during hard economic times, children often bear the brunt of that. And children in our nation are no different. We know that 1 in 5 children live in poverty. We know with Latino children, it's 1 in 3. We know that 1 in 5 children go hungry. With Latina children, it's 1 in 4. So when we look at those, then we say, well, how are the children doing at OCDC? It's rewarding to me to look back and say, the children that we see get usually 3 meals a day at least. We serve thousands of meals to the children. Our buses run over 600,000 miles in a year to provide access to the children to get them to the schools, not in bathtubs any longer, but in secure little harnesses in their seats. So also we find that over 4,000 children are receiving educational services. 100% of the children leave our programs with access to health care. 100% of our children, yes, that's it. 100% of our children leave with health insurance, which is not always easy to assure. And although we've been working hard on it, we still have about 90% of our children have access to dental care. Yes. We know that for children to be healthy and families to be healthy, having access to education and to health are 2 of the main factors. So we're very proud to know that the children that we serve have these resources available to them. So when I look, and then there's one other thing that we look at OCDC that I find is difficult to describe, but it is something that I feel almost daily, and I know that the staff do. And I think it's easiest for me to articulate that by saying what one of our board members, Natividad Barbosa, often says. Whenever we're dealing with some difficult issue or being confronted with something that we have to do, and the board is discussing that, Natividad is always one that talks about what we do at OCDC and what they do as a board is they serve with passion. It's from the heart. And even though it's hard to measure that, I see this daily in the interactions of the teachers with the children, with the other staff, with the families. And it's not something that you can measure in numbers like 100% or 90%. But as you go through the centers and as you interact with the families, you see that passion that people at OCDC have for one another and for the families that they serve. We also see that passion and that emotion with the families. The families are so devoted to seeing that their children can have success. They are so attentive to events to improve their own services and to improve their own skills. We're very fortunate that the parents really work with us and we with them to make these resources and services available to their children. And it's a gift to many of us to be able to do that service and to be involved with those families. So through these collective efforts, it seems as though we have a full palette of services to provide these children. We have health, we have education, we have nutrition, we have family services. And OCDC continues to strive to perpetuate the geniusness and hopefulness that each child is born with. And over the last 40 years, OCDC has increased its own awareness and skills in being able to assist children and families be all that they can be. So as I look back at the question about, so how are the children at Village OCDC? I'm very pleased to say I think that we're doing well. We anticipate the next 40 years to be just as adventuresome, probably just as challenging, but also we hope just as rewarding. So thank you very much for coming to celebrate this event with us. And I'm looking forward to seeing you 40 years from now. Thank you. Also now my pleasure to introduce to you our gold sponsor, Michael Montgomery from U.S. Bank. Without their support, we have not been able to have such a nice event for this evening, but also without their support, we wouldn't be able to have some of the nice facilities that we have to provide services for our children. I don't know if many of you have noticed on the video that was showing, many of our facilities are there. U.S. Bank has been our partner in those endeavors, and we anticipate that they will be a partner in another endeavor as we continue to grow the resources and services to be able to provide these services for the children and families. Mr. Montgomery?
Thank you so much. Buenas noches, good evening. It is so wonderful to be here tonight and to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful event to recognize the 40th anniversary of OCDC. On behalf of U.S. Bank, our Oregon President, Malia Wasson, and all of my colleagues at U.S. Bank, including those who joined me at the U.S. Bank table tonight, we are just so pleased to hear what has gone on, the accomplishments that have been made, and the direction that is being headed right now to improve everything that has to be improved and to work so closely with the children who are being affected very positively from OCDC and your work. As we look at statistics that we see every day about the need to be excellent, to improve in education, to improve in economic situations, it is important that families and children become the root of that improvement every day. And OCDC, with all of the fine work that you do, are indeed making this happen. We are so proud of that. It reflects the kind of work that U.S. Bank is happy to be a part of and happy to be a partner with you as you move forward. Cultivando excelencia, cultivating excellence. That's your theme, and that's the theme that we want to embrace as well. Enjoy your evening. Mucho gusto.
Thank you so much. So now we're gonna do a testimonial from Anthony Bellis, Public Relationships and Marketing. So please welcome to him.
Okay, good evening. My name's Anthony Velis with ESO Public Relations and Marketing, but even more important than that, I am a proud alumni of OCDC. And I'm sure thank you. So before I give my thanks to OCDC, my father-in-law mentioned something really important that what I should really be thankful for, and that is the rice and beans that my mom made for me every morning since the day pretty much I was born. I think I ate rice and beans when I was a kid, even then that age. I don't know, we eat everything, so. But even to that, so he kind of made me chuckle because, it takes all that energy, and that's what gave us the energy to kind of do what we had to do, especially my parents as they worked in the fields. I want to acknowledge my mom and dad, Rodolfo and Canda Velis. If you could please give everybody a little wave. When I think about OCDC, the first thing that comes to mind is trust. Because as Donalda mentioned, every day OCDC was entrusted with, and has been today, and will for the next 40 years and beyond, with families' most precious gifts, and that is little infant and toddlers. And I can't even, and I don't remember sitting in a tub, but I don't think I was one of those people, because I remember my mom would tell you he'd never like to take a bath, you know, so I'm sure it wasn't me. But OCDC not only empowered me as a young person, my mom, my dad, because with all those services, the leadership development they provided, but when you do that, you also empower your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, because all of that, and then pretty soon it spills into a community. We live in a great community south of here called Woodburn, Oregon, and I can tell you that I run into a lot of alumni of OCDC that have done outstanding work in the community. They're working at nonprofit organizations, they're healthcare providers, they're politicians, they're business owners, and all that started, as we all know, it starts when we're very young. And all of those positive images, the love, the care that OCDC staff provides each and every one of our children across the state of Oregon, that's what I remember about OCDC. And I think that's the message that I want to leave here with you tonight. Because the Latino community is a very, very close-knit group of people, and it's all about trust. And OCDC has my trust, and they always will for the rest of my life and of our family. So thank you, OCDC. Especially want to thank all of the people that have worked in the front lines, the men and women who pick up the children. And we're going to see a great video later about what I'm talking about, and care for them. And really, it's that nurturing that you just can't put a price on that. And you know, as a young person, you're looking up to an adult, and you feel that warmth and that care. That's a really special feeling. And thank you, OCDC, and thank you for being here, and have a good evening.
We would also like to have one of our parents come and talk with you a little bit. When we were organizing this event, we had several individuals who were very interested in being able to present. But as I said, services at OCDC are filled with passion and emotion, and several of our people said they could not get through the emotion to be able to do the discussion. But we did get some people who said they would do that. Victor Kachinko is one of our past parents. He's also our community representative, and he did say that he would be able to come and speak. So thank you, Victor. Can you come forward, please? I especially appreciate Victor because he was our policy council president for a while. Then he went off of that and still continues to be involved in his community. He participates at his local center, and whenever we have questions about what's going on in the community, Victor is always there to help us out. He is a leader, and will tell you a little bit about his experience. Thank you so much, Victor. And are you going to have Martha? Okay. Victor also, I know, speaks very good English, but he feels very comfortable, I think, with translation, and so Martha will be here to help.
If he gets stuck.
If he gets stuck, okay.
Buenas noches, good evening. Well, as Donalda says, my name is Victor Chonteco. Please, Junior, join us. En nombre del Policy Council, les doy las gracias a todos por asistir a este evento de 40 años. So the name of the Policy Council, I give the thank to be here and support us. And one of those that you have the word to support OCDC, Head Start, I will, pass the word and les pido de favor. Como ven aquí, Víctor Jr., él fue un niño de Head Start, de OCDC, cuando tenía 6 semanas de nacido. Cuando su mamá falleció, su segunda mamá vino siendo OCDC. So, see Junior right here, since his mom died, OCDC became his second mom. And I thank OCDC, and that's what I've been involved in OCDC because all with the help they've been giving to me, I don't pay with that much time that I put into. So, Donalda, and also we have a really good coordinator, government coordinator, this Carelia, gracias. So, please. Y es un gran honor también para mí estar aquí con José Hernández. Y muchas gracias. Y le doy de esto nomás le doy las gracias que nos sigan apoyando. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. So most of us here this evening might not know what is a day in the life of a child and their families with OCDC. So we have a video titled "A Day in the Life of Pablito." So please, let's watch this video. So we have, hello. So we have a couple of the stars of the video here. So Rafael and Daniela, could you stand up, please? As the video portrayed, the work that OCDC does with children and families is amazing. Our next speaker is the product of what a migrant child can achieve when given an opportunity. Our keynote speaker was recently featured in The List, an HBO documentary that aired last month for Hispanic Heritage Month. He was assigned to the crew of a space shuttle mission STS-128. He also served as chief of the Material and Processes branch of Johnson Space Center. Prior to becoming an astronaut, he worked at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in Livermore, California. While there, Hernandez, along with a commercial college, developed the first full-field digital mammography imaging system. This invention aids in the early detection of breast cancer. He was born in Frenchtown, California, but calls Stockton, California, his hometown. His family is from La Piedad, Michoacán, with indigenous Purechepa roots. And as a child, Hernandez worked alongside his family and other farm workers throughout the fields of California, harvesting crops and moving from one town to another. He attended many schools and he didn't learn to speak English until he was 12. He earned a degree in electrical engineering from the University of Pacific in 1984. In 1986, Hernandez earned an MS in electrical and computer engineering from the University of California, Santa Barbara. And also, I learned tonight that he goes to the Chivas Guadalajara. Por favor, join me in welcoming nuestro orgullo hispano, José Hernández.
Thank you very much. Gracias. Muchas gracias. I would hope you would stand up after I gave the talk. But, you don't know what kind of talk I'm going to give, right? First of all, what I want to do is I want to thank the Oregon Child Development Coalition por invitarme aquí, for inviting me here, specifically to Donalda Dodson, who was very instrumental in getting a hold of me, along with Anthony Velez, to get me here. I'm a little busy with my schedule, pero cuando se trata de nuestra gente y especialmente nuestra juventud, when it's all about our kids, that kind of pulls the heartstrings a bit, and so it's hard to say no. So regardless of that, just so you know what my schedule was, I was in Stockton on Friday, Boise yesterday, y aquí estamos hoy dando una charla aquí also. So I'm sort of was moving around throughout the country these past couple of days, pero con mucho gusto. Also want to thank Roxy por una bonita introducción, very great introduction, and she did a great job, so muchísimas gracias. And then also all our sponsors that are here in making this possible. I think it's very important that folks like from the U.S. Bank, specifically I had a chance to talk to Michael J. Montgomery and his lovely wife, Stephanie. It was great to thank you very much for the support of this organization. The silver sponsors, the bronze sponsors don't go without mention either. Hopefully, after watching today's program, we convince you to come back next year as gold sponsors as well, and follow the lead here of Mr. Michael J. Montgomery. So thank you very much. Now, a lot of, the reason why I like to show the video allí, el que vieron, acaban de ver, the one you just got through seeing, and I know I'm going to wreak havoc on, I know we have a simultaneous interpreter back there, and I'm sorry, yo soy bicultural y hablo Spanglish y se va a confundir el pobre, pero ni modo. Because I do like, that is my style of delivery, is to speak in Spanish and in English, and hopefully if you just speak Spanish, you'll understand 90%. If you just speak English, you'll understand 90%. So in the old college days, 90% was still an A. So okay. The reason why I show the video is it tells the story. It tells the story of the folks that we have here today. You know, we have Victor Jr. that you just saw up here on stage. We have Isaac Peña, who's right there, and so, you know, it's these kids that when I look at them, I see so much of myself in there. And the video, serves as living proof that, those were the origins, and that really the sky is not the limit. It's space, because we need to be able to teach our kids not to limit themselves. Usually, the biggest obstacles in our life is ourselves. We put the barriers in front of us. And so the story I like to tell you is, I want to tell you a story where hopefully in an anecdotal fashion, you'll be able to see that what we need to do is we need to encourage our kids, and we need to give them the license to dream. Not only the license to dream, but then we provide the mechanism via organizations like the Oregon Child Development Coalition, via the parents themselves. We provide that mechanism to turn those dreams into tangible goals so that they can reach them. Because, I tell you, when I was 7, 9 years old, like Isaac here or Victor Jr., I was no different than they were. Yo no hablaba inglés. Yet, it was the careful craftsmanship of my parents, in spite of their 3rd grade education, that I was able to literally reach for the stars. And so my journey begins in La Piedad, Michoacán. I come from a typical migrant farm working family. And our routine was very typical of those in Michoacán. We used to spend 9 months in the United States and 3 months in Mexico. And the way it would go, we would have, my dad in about February would load up the kids. You saw there, it's 4 of us, load up the kids in the back seat, my mom, and we would make a 2-day trip to California. And once in California, we would stop and we would start working in the fields. Usually era La Fresa, which we would get there first in Southern California. And then we would make our way about a month and a half later, make our way up to Central California, Salinas, Fresno, that area. Y ya trabajamos en la lechuga y el asadón. The hoe and picking lettuce, thinning out sugar beets with the hoe. Spend another month and a half there, and then we would spend the bulk of our time in a place called Stockton, Modesto, Tracy, that area, the Northern California Valley. Allí sí, right there we ended up picking el pepino, cucumber, la cereza, cherry, and then we went into el durazno, el tomate verde, the peaches and green tomato for market, and then we would end the season con la uva, the grape harvest. That took us to about October, November timeframe. At that time, my dad would tell us to get 3 months worth of homework porque nos vamos a Mexico. Y ahí vamos a Mexico. Now it was a 2.5-day trip a Mexico. And then llegaba February and the process repeated itself again. So era un proceso año tras año, we would do that. Probably what made our family, different from a typical migrant farm working family, was that in those days, school was used as a babysitting service because la familia trabajaba en el campo y los más pequeños a la escuela, pues no podían trabajar. So it was the babysitting service. Ya cuando estaban grandecitos los niños, los jalaban de la escuela. Once they were adolescent, they would pull the kids out of school and put them to work 7 days a week. And I think that's where my dad and mom made the decision not to do that to us. I remember very well as I was an adolescent when my parents would be around friends, amigos, tomando una cerveza o algo, that my father's friends would make fun of my dad because, during payday, they would kind of fan out 8, 9 paychecks because their kids were out of school now. They pulled them out of, they were 9th, 10th graders. They pulled them out of school because they're big boys now and big girls, and they could bring home a paycheck. The name of the game was bring home a paycheck, right? And they would make fun of my dad because they would say, "Ay, qué tonto." He says, "How fool? You're a fool because you're wasting 4 paychecks. You have 4 kids in school when you could have 4 paychecks instead." And I remember my dad wouldn't say anything. And I think that was the difference. He in spite of their 3rd grade education, they paid attention to our education. And it wasn't just that. It was the fact that they got involved in our educational process. Yo recuerdo, I remember every time we used to come home from school, we would come home and my mom would sit us en la cocinita de la casa. Mientras ella torteaba, while she would make fresh tortillas and arroz y sopa de fideo, we would be doing our homework. And she wouldn't let us off the table until we finished. It only took me once. I got into about the 5th grade. Remember they only studied till 3rd grade, so they couldn't help us with the homework. So I said, okay, pues ya me voy a poner medio abusado y les voy a decir que termine la tarea y no la terminé. I'm going to tell them, since they can't check it, I'm going to tell them I finished the homework, and of course I didn't finish it. I still remember the belt whipping that I got. Que no me quedó ganas, I wasn't about to challenge him again. That once was enough for me to try to pull that stunt. And so, also, I think my parents would have made great psychologists if they had gone to college, because they were like the master motivators. They were, yo recuerdo cuando íbamos a una oficina, we would go to an office. Of course, yo con my torn Levi's and my holes in my shoe on the bottom and all that, we'd go into an office, and my mom would see a gentleman with a suit and tie. And of course, she would tug on me, say Pepe, because that's what they call me, Pepe, Jose, they call Pepito, right? They would say, she would point to that gentleman and says, ¿Qué ves? What do you see there? And of course, I would say, "Oh, I see a man." And she says, no, it says, "I see you," she says. She would say, "That's how I want to see you, in a suit and tie. That's why you need to go to school to be able to get a job like that and not work in the fields like we do." And so it was a pretty powerful message. She also put the burden of responsibility on us. I said she was a great psychologist, right? She put the expectation of the future of the family on the kids. And, some people would say, well, gee, that's unfair. But in my eyes, I think, you look back at it, I said, that's brilliant. Because, she challenged us. And she said, the future is going to be better once you guys go to college. She would never, because she says, you guys are going to pull the family out of la situación en que estamos, which was a very humble beginning, humble life that we lived. And so she always talked in the sense of, Not, I hope you go to college or if you go to college. She always spoke of when we would go to college. So she put that bit in your mind that, when as we grew older, we had no choice because my mom decía que teníamos que ir al colegio, a la universidad. And so we were programmed, brainwashed, if you will, from the very young that we were going to college. And it was amazing. My dad también, he was the same way. I remember when we used to work, Monday to Friday during school year, we went to school. Pero se llegaba sábado, domingo, when Saturday and Sunday rolled around, we were there hand in hand with my parents in the fields. And while all my friends loved summer vacation, the Hernandez kids hated it. Porque ya sabíamos lo que iba a pasar, right? 7 days a week en el campo, all right? But I remember one of those days when we finished working in the fields. We were working in the cucumbers at Pepino. And of course, when you work in the cucumbers, the fields are freshly irrigated, so they're kind of muddy. And you have Levi's on. So in the morning, you kind of get mud all the way up to your waist. You'll be pretty muddy. Then the sun comes up, and it bakes the mud on your Levi's, right? Because I remember we used to go home, los cuatro niños, and we would take the pants off and play contests, see who could stand up the pants by themselves the most, right? Según nosotros, according to us, the one that stood up the most is the one that worked the hardest that day. Never mind how many buckets of cucumbers we picked. It's, that true litmus test was how stiff were your pants, And so of course, they didn't know I was the youngest one, right? So they didn't know I rolled around in the mud and siempre ganaba yo. Así que según yo era el más trabajador, ¿verdad? But that wasn't the case. But I remember one of those days, we got into the car, and of course we were dusty, sweaty, stinky, and tired. And I remember my dad, before he started the car, he looked back at us, and then he started doing this every day after that. But he looked at us, and he would make eye contact with each one of us, all four of us. He would say, ¿Cómo se sienten? How do you feel? Y como yo era el más habliche, era el más chico, right? So, el más rezongón, que se dice. The one that would talk back the most, that was me. I said, what do you mean, how do we feel? Tired, hard day of work, right? And he said, qué bueno. I said, good. He says, because you guys have the distinct privilege. Ustedes tienen el privilegio of living your future now, of viviendo su futuro ahora. And I said, living your future now? I said, the old man got sunstroke or something. He's talking strange words to me here. Dije, ya le pegó el sol mucho al viejo, dije. And then he said, no, he says, sí, porque I'm not going to force you to go to school. I'm not going to force you to get good grades. But if you don't, guess what? You're living your future now. This is your future. And I said, wow, this is a pretty powerful message. And like I said, he used to do it every day after that. And, we used to play games because we said, hoy se le va a olvidar. And he would never forget. He would say, how do you feel? And, go through that whole routine again. And so, he kind of drilled it into us, saying, and when he said that the first time, he said, es más, he says, if you guys don't want to go to school, de una vez, vengan a trabajar con nosotros 7 days a week. Come work with us 7 days a week. You don't have to go to school. Y yo dije, no, pues ahí muere. We'll go to school. Because I said, no, I don't want to do this 7 days a week. So hence the motivation to do well in school, right? And so, that's the type of things that that a lot of parents today say, they'll turn around and say, well, I don't have an education. So you don't have to have an education. My parents only had a third grade education. It's what you do at home. Es como se involucra uno en el proceso educativo de su hijo. That's the important part. You know, the temptation is there, believe me, because I have 5 kids. The temptation is there to tell the kids, hey, go do your homework. Y la mujer, pues, deja ver la novela, a ver a cuál está pegando. ¿Cuál es la que está pegando ahora? Y como ya no las veo, la última que vi fue Destilando Amor, pero so you can't just tell the kids, go do your homework, and then the women go and turn on TV and watch the Mexican soap opera. Or you can't, as a man, go and tell them, do your homework and go outside and drink beers with your buddies after a long, hard day's work. You have to sit down with them and do the homework. They have to see that you're willing to put the time, que estás dispuesto a poner tu tiempo. You have to challenge them. And if they see that you're investing your time, then ellos van a decir, no, pues, mi papá están invirtiendo tiempo, they care, I better do well. So you have to challenge them, but you gotta walk the talk. No nomás es de decir, es de actuar, involucrarse uno en el proceso educativo del niño. So that's the best advice I could give as a parent to everybody. Now, I remember I was in the 2nd grade. You saw the picture there of in my 2nd grade class. When I was in the 2nd grade, we were up in Stockton, y se llegó el tiempo para irnos a México. November rolled around, and my dad, nos dijo, nos vamos a México, we're going to Mexico, agarren sus 3 meses de tarea, get your 3 months worth of homework. So I said, okay, well, we went to school that day, and we lived about 1.5 miles from our elementary school. So we would walk to school and back. It was kind of long distance. I think nowadays, you make your children walk 1.5 miles, you get arrested for child endangerment. But in those days, it was okay. You can make your kid walk 1.5 miles, right? And I remember fuimos a la escuela, and my 2nd grade teacher was Mrs. Young. And so I remember her very well because that was my first crush, 2nd grade. Era una maestra jovencita, como 5 años egresada del colegio, and chinita. She was tall. Well, tall relative to a 2nd grader, porque ahorita la veo, I see her now and she's kind of short. She seemed tall back then. So anyway, I went to my class and I said, Mrs. Young, I said, we're going to Mexico next week. Can you please prepare our 3 months worth of homework? Because we would do our homework in Mexico allá solitos. And of course, she rolled her eyes and she said, you know what? Tell your parents que voy a tu casa hoy en la noche. And I said, okay, está bien, pues le digo, ¿verdad? So that day I went running home con el chisme, right? Of course, my parents were home from work, and so I tell my parents, les suelto el chisme, right? I say, hey, the teacher's coming home to visit. She wants to talk to you guys. Okay, mi papá es bien especial, bien estricto, right? He's very special. My dad, very strict. And I remember, when I tell him, I get 2 distinct reactions from my parents. The first one is mi papá. He starts taking off his cinto, right? It's obvious to him I did something bad, le va a traer una queja. She's gonna come and complain, and so he might as well dole out the punishment right now, right? So he's getting his cinto, and I'm kind of backing away and trying to do some fast talking, convincing him que no hice nada malo. Y él me dice, más te vale, because it's gonna go twice as bad if you did. Te va a ir doble si hiciste algo malo, no me dices. So I convince him, so I'm not in trouble there. And then you tell your mom. Your mom's como una típica latina, right? La reacción de ella es, una surprise. Dice, va a venir la maestra, hay que barrer, hay que limpiar, hay que hacer tortillas recién hechas, let's make fresh tortillas, let's clean house and all that, and, take out all the bells and whistles, because you know, us as Latinos, we have this great respect for educators that when they come home and visit, we're gonna take out the best, right? The best food, you know, put away the chipped plates and bring out the plates que no están quebraditos, all that kind of stuff. You know, we do all that, right? And so sure enough, vino la maestra y comimos bien rico esa vez. We ate very good, que hasta había carnita en el plato, right? There was even meat in the plate, you know, it wasn't just rice and beans. And so I remember, of course, I was sitting next to her because remember I had a crush on her. And after we finished eating, I said, Mrs. Young, and she says, yes, Jose. I says, you ought to come over more often. Y todos riéndose menos mi papá. You know how your father is, you know, he kind of just stares you down and says, vas a ver cuando se va la maestra. We got to have a talk, you know. He can't hit me right there because, of course, the maestra's right there, right? He can't hit me, so, but he's remembering, he's kind of giving me the look, wait till she leaves, wait till she leaves, you're in trouble. So of course, she gets down to the business of explaining her purpose of being there, and like Isaac Peña here, you know, I was the translator of la familia allí, porque pues la maestra hablaba inglés y mis papás no hablaban inglés. So the teacher, and I remember very clear how she explained it to it. She used terms that my parents could understand, which I appreciated. Now, is she basically said, you know, you guys need to stay in one place, porque sus hijos, your kids, are like trees. Says, if you keep transplanting them, they're gonna grow weak. Says, you need to stay in one place so the roots grow deep and the branches grow tall and strong. And you know, again, very, very powerful message that Mrs. Young sent to my parents. You know, that year we still went to Mexico, but we did something different. We came straight back to Northern California immediately. We didn't make the 3 or 4 different school district stops that we usually did throughout the year. We went to one school district now throughout the whole year. And our 3-month trips started to shrink to 3 weeks, centered around Christmas vacation. So we ended up missing a lot less school, more stability, and that's when we started learning English. That's why it took me till I was 12 before I dominated the English language. Some people say I still don't dominate it, but it's more. And so our education began to take traction. And so a lot of people say, okay, well, you're still a migrant farm worker. How in the heck did you become an astronaut? ¿Cómo te atreviste a soñar a ser astronauta? And to me, it was very, very simple. Unfortunately, I'm old enough to remember the tail end of the Apollo program. It was Apollo 17. In those days, the missions were televised on TV live. The moonwalks were. And Apollo 17 was the last mission. I remember we used to have una televisión. You guys remember these, I think. So, you know, those console TVs that are made out of wood. You got this in the center, you got the black and white screen with integrated speakers, big honking knob in the middle and the top to change the channel. It just even makes a noise when it changed it. Remember when? That was our TV. And then real heavy, it's like a piece of furniture. I was always amazed how it was held up by 4 little wooden legs. You know, redonditas, no? That's how it was. That was our consola TV, black and white. You know, every once in a while, de vez en cuando, you lose that vertical sync, so you get that annoying black bar, the picture going up like that, de vez en cuando, que uno le tiene que dar un golpe así para que se arreglara. That was our TV. And then if your mom, si tu mamá tejía, if your mom knitted, you had that nice little mantel de flor arriba, right? And right on top of that era la antena de oreja de conejo. That was our antenna, rabbit ear antenna on top of that mat that mom knitted, right? And so I remember, I'll digress a little bit and I'll get back to my story, but I remember one day when we were sitting down, I was sitting down with mi papá en el sofá ahí enfrente. Right next to him, I was sitting to him. And then he tells me, "Cámbiale el canal, change the channel." And so I would get up and I would change the channel. Luego me decía about 2 minutes later, "Change the channel." Ay, pobre Pepito, a cambiar el canal. Change the channel. Bueno, para contarles, hacer el cuento corto, he told me 9 times to change the channel. And I don't know, maybe I was in a bad mood that day because you don't talk back to my dad, pero esa vez estaba medio fastidiado. You gotta understand my frustration because we only got 3 channels. Estamos dando vuelta. Remember in those days it was only ABC, NBC, CBS, and you know, sometimes we you know, you got PBS, and sorry Roxy, we got PBS, but who watched PBS, you know? It was just those 3 channels, right? And I say sorry Roxy because she used to work at PBS. and so yo dije, okay, 9 veces, that means we've been through the channel, each channel 3 times. I said, no, la próxima vez que me diga algo, next time he tells me something to change the channel, I'm gonna tell him something. Yo le voy a decir algo. And you don't understand my dad. My dad has a way of turning every comment, twisting it a su modo de él, right? Because I could just hear him. If I complained about it, you know, he was gonna, you know, tell me something, right? So I said, pero ni modo, I'm gonna tell him. And so then he tells me the 10th time, cámbiale el canal. So I get up and I say, okay, I'm gonna make sure of 2 things before I tell him something. The first thing is, you change the channel so that he can't say he has a disobedient kid, right? Then the next thing you do is, I'll be darned if I sit next to him. I'm gonna sit down on the other side of the sofa. The key is to be beyond his arm radius, para que no te pueda dar un coscorrón, right? So I go and he does it, I change the channel and I go and sit on the other side of the sofa. So now I'm watching the TV from an angle, but I could see him from the side, right? And ya me senté y dije, okay, pues dijiste que ibas a decir algo. You said you were going to say something, time to man up and say it, right? So I guess I muster up my courage and I say, papi. And that's how I used to call him. And of course, he is with a deep voice and stern voice, sí, mijo. And then I said, okay. I said, did you know, kind of like an encyclopedia fact. I said, did you know that they have the new TVs that are color with remote control? I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I was thinking he was going to say, well, sure, mijo, let's go to Kmart and buy one. But that's where we used to shop at, Kmart, right? And do you guys ever say something where you kind of regret you say it? The words come out and you kind of want to get those words back in your mouth. That's how I felt, because that's how I figured as soon as I said that, remember how I said he has ways of twisting word things around? I could just hear him say, ay, mijo malagradecido, ungrateful kid, you got a TV, now you want color and remote control, estás como tu mamá, you buy her the washer and she wants the dryer and all that, I could just hear him say that, right? I just hear him say that. That was the way my dad was. But of course, it's too late to take the words back. So you're just sitting there. And I don't know how it is in your family when you grew up, but in mi familia, we have what's called the 6 magical seconds, critical seconds that we call. Que cuando uno hace una travesura, when you guys do misbehave, if your parents don't get up in 6 minutes to spank you, in 6 seconds, in 6 seconds to spank you, you pass the critical stage that you're probably not going to get spanked anymore, right? So I remember I'm sitting there after I said that and regretting that I said it, and I'm saying, as I was thinking about how after I said, please don't get up 1, please don't get up 2, I'm counting those 6 seconds, right? So the 6 seconds came and went, and then you're still not in the clear. Because the next thing you got to do is you got to make eye contact with him. Okay? Because by this time, he's staring you down. And my dad is such that you better not have a smirk on your face, or you better not be challenging him. You better have the fear of death in your face, because that's the only way he's not going to get up and give you a belt whipping, right? So, I turned around and tried to put my best fear of life in my face. Of course, I think the bead of sweat coming down my forehead helped. And so I turn around and I look, sure enough, he's staring me down. And then all of a sudden, that stern look turns into a face of pity, like saying, God, what a dumb kid I have. Kind of that kind of look, Kind of like, when you're playing baseball and they hope you're going to make the major leagues and they see you strike out and they say, oh, he ain't going to make it. So he just starts nodding his head and says, mijo, mijo, mijo. He says, why do I need a TV with remote control when I have you? So it was obvious that I was the remote control. Y esa mendiga televisión, that darn TV lasted another 3 years. And much to my regret. Pero, with that same TV, I mentioned we had the rabbit ear antennas. And anytime we had something important on TV, apart from being the official channel, the remote control, I was the official antenna adjuster. Okay? So cuando se haya algo importante en la tele, yo ajustaba la televisión, ¿verdad? And now I know, since I'm an electrical engineer, I know why this happens, because uno tiene tierra, and as soon as you grab la antena, el imagen mejora, right? The image gets great. And so guess what my dad would tell me? Ay, quédate. Stay right there. While the family's nice and comfortable in the sofa watching the programming, ahí está pobre Pepe next to the TV, holding the antenna, ¿verdad? Viendo de un ángulo que no puede ver bien. And so, when the Apollo moonwalk, Apollo 17, was occurring on the surface of the moon, that was no different. Mi papá me dijo, pues, ten la antena. So I grabbed the antenna, and of course everybody bien a gustos en el sofá. Y yo pobre deteniendo la tele while the moonwalk was occurring. I kid around with my brothers. I'm not sure if my brother Salvador ever made it here. Is he here or not? I don't see him here. Because my brother lives in Vancouver. He said he may drop by, pero no está aquí. But what would happen was, I kid with my siblings now that it was through osmosis I became an astronaut. Because the signals would go through the antenna, go through my body, and go through the TV. Me programé a ser astronauta. I was programmed. So I tell them, I kid around with my older siblings now, because I'm the youngest. I said, you see, if you would have held the antenna, you too could have gone to space. You should have helped me when I asked for help. And so I remember, as soon as they got tired of watching, they would be gracious enough to let me let go. Y yo me sentaba, I would adjust the antenna lo más mejor que podía, and then I would sit in front of the TV and watch the astronauts walk on the moon. It was Gene Cernan, Apollo 17. And then I would go outside, and the moon was full. I would see the moon, come back inside, watch the astronauts, hear them talking to Mission Control Houston, go outside, see the moon. And to me, it was incredible that we, in 1972, had humans up on the surface of the moon, 250,000 miles away. And I remember I said, that's what I want to be. Yo quiero ser un astronauta. I was 9 years old, no older than these kids here. And I shared that dream with my parents. And, my parents could have probably said during that time, pues ahora que le pegó más el sol es a mi hijo, right? Ya está chiflado. Now the one with sunstroke is my son, because he's trying to dream up impossible dreams. That's what they could have said, right? They could have tried and convinced me to try for something lower my expectations, but they didn't. That's the beauty of it all. it's that they sat me down at the same table where they had me do my homework after school every day, and they said, "So you want to be an astronaut?" And of course, I told my dad, "Sí, señor." I said, "That's great. You know, you can be one." He says, "We're going to give you the recipe to be whatever you want to be." Y yo, of course, I was all ears after that. I said, "Oh, really? What?" Te vamos a dar los ingredientes. We'll give you the ingredients. He said, "First, you have to define where you want to go. What's your goal? What's your end goal?" And I said, "Okay, quiero ser astronauta. I'm halfway there, so I checked that box." And then he said, "Then you have to know where you're at. Tienes que saber dónde estás. And you gotta draw yourself a map of all the steps necessary, however small they are, to get to that goal. And no se vale brincar pisos. No shortcuts. You can't skip steps. You gotta draw yourself a map." I said, "Okay." And then he says, "Then you have to work hard. You can't be afraid of hard work." I said, "Papá, pues trabajamos en el campo. How much harder can it be?" You know? And then he said, "Luego tienes que tener ganas y corazón." He says, "You're gonna have to want to do it, no porque quiere tu mamá, no porque lo quiere tu papá, sino porque tú lo quieres. It's gotta be your dream. You gotta want to do it." And then finally he said, "Then you have to get yourself, the final ingredient is you have to get yourself a good education." He says, "You mix all that up," he says, "that's the recipe for you wanting to become an astronaut." And I remember I went to bed that day tan contento because I said, "Wow, you know, my parents believe in me." And now this is why I say, you know, they gave me the license to dream. You know, had they said something different, you know, they could have deflated my goals and I wouldn't have been here. But they, you know, in spite of the third grade education, they had the wisdom to feed and nurture that dream. And that's what we have to do as parents, is we have to nurture, feed that dream, and provide the support to make that dream into a tangible goal for our kids. Y así es como pasó. And so I started going to school, education started getting traction, went to the university, got my graduate degree, and I started working at Lawrence Livermore Lab, and I started applying to become an astronaut after I met all the requirements. And I applied 1 year, didn't even get a call. 2 years, 3 years. It took me 12 times to get selected. So I guess the other ingredient I would add to my father's recipe is perseverance. You can't give up. You have to keep trying. But you have to do what I call smart perseverance. Cada año, as I applied to the NASA program, I always try to improve my background to be selected as an astronaut. 1 year, because I read the profile of an astronaut, 99% are pilots. I learned how to fly in Tracy Municipal Airport. Got my pilot's license. Found out that 95% of them were scuba certified. I went to Monterey and I got scuba certified. I learned 1 year that we were gonna sign an agreement to build the International Space Station with the Russians. So I knew we were gonna be working with the Russians in the future. So guess what I did at Lawrence Livermore Lab? I took a project on, I joined a project that took me to Russia. Not because I wanted to go to Russia, but because that justified me taking Russian classes. So ya ponemaya по-русски язык. Made me more attractive to NASA. And it's that type of perseverance that we need to do. We have to improve ourselves constantly as we try. And if we don't get it the first time, we keep trying as we improve ourselves. Y así es como llegué a ser seleccionado. After 12 years, in 2004, I got selected to the 19th class of astronauts for NASA. As we arrived in 2004, you're not prepared to be assigned to a mission. You're an astronaut candidate, so you train for 2 years. After 2 years, you're eligible for flight assignment. So in 2008, I got assigned to my mission on board STS-128 Discovery, Space Shuttle Discovery, to go in 2009, August 28th through September 11th, 14-day mission to the International Space Station. We had a midnight launch. There were 7 of us astronauts. I was the flight engineer, which meant I was the one that had to be the most knowledgeable about all the flight systems, about everything on the shuttle. I sat on the flight deck. There's only 4 of us on the flight deck, and I sat. The commander sits in the front to the left, the pilot to the front to the right, and me as the flight engineer a little bit behind him, right in the center. So I get the best view in the house as we launch into space, because I have to look at all the monitors. So I'm the one that's monitoring everything to make sure everything's working nominally. And let me tell you that the experience of going into space, it's amazing. You know, we launch at midnight. It only takes 8.5 minutes to get up into space. As you're sitting there on your back, the countdown begins. You get to about 4 seconds. The 3 engines light up. So you put down your visor, your helmet, and you hear the roar of the engines. You feel a gentle vibration. And then about 2 seconds later, the 2 solid rocket boosters light up. Those, once you turn them on, they don't turn off. You know you're going somewhere. You don't know where, but you're going somewhere. And the noise level goes up in order of magnitude. The vibration is more violent. You think everything's gonna fall apart. And you think that because you start thinking, you know, this is 1,000,000 parts put together by the lowest bid. You know, that's what came to my mind. Just as you think everything's gonna fall apart, you feel a push in your back, and that's the liftoff. And you start lifting off, and about the first 4 minutes of flight, it's like the best e-ticket ride Disneyland can offer. It's just amazing. The second 4.5 minutes se pone un poco más cañón, you know, it's a little bit tougher. Because remember, you go from 0 miles an hour, in 8.5 minutes, you're going 17,500 miles an hour. So the second half, you really start feeling the acceleration, the G-force across your chest. It feels like, it starts off feeling, and I know this because I have 5 kids, it feels like you have a newborn baby on your chest at the beginning. You know there's something, pero it doesn't bother you. But then when you're about 8 minutes up, about 30 seconds before you reach space, you know, that little baby is grown to my 17-year-old son, que está bien grandote. You know, you can't breathe because there's so much pressure in your chest. You can't expand your chest. You're almost hyperventilating. But then you reach 8.5 minutes, MECO, main engine cutoff, and you know the force disappears, and now you're able to breathe. And now you're going around the world once every 90 minutes at 17,500 miles an hour. And so if you do your math, once every 90 minutes for 14 days, that's over 217 times around the world that I went around, which meant I went about 5.4 million miles. 2 comments on that. I wish we had a frequent flyer program. And then when I tell my wife that 5.4 million miles translates into about 9.7 million kilometers. When I first told her that, I was practicing my speech and stuff like that. She says, "Ay, viejo, tienes mucho kilometraje." She said I have a lot of mileage. But good thing is she still loves me. And so so it's just amazing when you're up there now, because now you're up there. We connect, we dock with the International Space Station up there. There's 6 astronauts up there on the International Space Station, 7 of us on the shuttle. That's 13 astronauts at once in space, representing five countries, which is amazing. And we conduct science up there. Summarizing everything, I guess I just want to re-emphasize the fact that if you take anything away from here today, is my parents' recipe for success. Sprinkle on a little perseverance, and get involved in the educational process. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but if you have friends out there, this is the message they need to hear, porque it's kids like Victor Jr. and Isaac that are gonna keep our country going forward, and we need to afford them every possibility to succeed. Así que muchísimas gracias.
Wow, how inspirational story. So, Donalda, I would like to welcome you back to the podium to talk about some current and future ventures for OCDC. You please join.
I mentioned that our village is doing well, and over these 40 years, OCDC has also gained a lot of skills and abilities. We looked back and we've recognized that we have 40 years of experience in professional development. One of the things that we do at OCDC is bring entry-level positions in and then help individuals with schooling so that they can have a career. We're also very pleased that over 23% of our current staff have been former parents within our program. So, building up on that, plus the 40 years of working in Latino communities, and we have 40 years of working with Latino workers, we've explored what is going on in our communities. We know that in Oregon, we have an increasing Latino population. We also know that the workforce is needing to have more Latino workers. So in looking at that, this last year, we launched a little mini program using stimulus dollars to create a parent apprentice program. We were extremely fortunate in that we had 11 applicants for the 11 positions that we had. In the 6 months that it took them to complete the apprentice program, we had to really kind of hold on to the apprentices because everybody was so eager for them to graduate so that they could employ them. So that was a positive thing. But all 11 graduated and all 11 obtained employment. So based upon that, we are launching a Latino workforce development program to continue to work with our families, to offer them opportunities for either enriching their skills or deciding on a different career. And we're very pleased that we have one of our future worksite people here today with us. SAFE has identified that they would love to work with us and we would love to work with them in our first intern program. We have also been talking with a couple other potential work places that are interested in this. And so we're building upon our last 40 years and looking how we can move forward, this time emphasizing what we might be able to develop for parents to be able to increase their skills. So I would like Christine Hoffman, if she would come and just share with you a little bit about the intern apprentice program that they have and that we will be venturing to work with them. Christine?
Buenas noches a todos. I am the bilingual director at Safe Corporation, and I want to thank Donalda for allowing us to be here tonight. It's quite an honor. I also want to take a moment and recognize my young Latino leadership candidates, which are here. Teresa Lenz, Jose Garcia, this is our future. The Latino community is growing, it is vibrant, and it is alive. And we need to get on board with that, and SAFE is very pleased to say that we are beginning that partnership with OCDC, not only as their insured, but as a partner in the community. And I'm hopeful next year that I'll be able to come back and tell you about the successes with the Parental Apprentice Program. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, our next guest is currently serving as policy advisor to Governor John Kitzhaber and also serves as the Director for Diversity and Inclusion and Affirmative Action in the Office of the Governor. Mr. Garcia is also owner partner of Garcia and Associates, LLC, a consultant firm focused on diversity and inclusion, workforce development, multicultural communications, and leadership development. Mr. Garcia is a native Oregonian whose parents are from South Texas. After years of following migrant streams, they settled in Dayton, Oregon in the early 60s. Mr. Garcia was raised in Dayton and graduated from Dayton High School class of '83. Mr. Garcia has a BA in sociology from Portland State University and a master's degree in higher education administration from New York University. Mr. Garcia is married to Leslie Garcia, and they have two girls, Brianna and Isabella. Please join me in welcoming Frank Garcia Jr.
Buenas noches, good evening. I know we're turning towards the end of the program. Are you feeling inspired? Yes, beautiful. Congratulations, Jose. You're an inspiration to all of us. I give the honored duty of making an ask as this is a fundraiser for OCDC. And I think I was asked because I too am come from migrant families and farm workers and really a beneficiary of Head Start and migrant education. And know the fields very well. And in keeping with the Pepino theme, out in Dayton we have Pepino too. And a lot of it in late August and late July, August is when we harvest it. And you know, if one thing you should notice is that, you know, just because we're migrants doesn't mean we don't have capacidad. Doesn't mean we don't have inteligencia. We have a lot of it. We've been playing our hand from the very beginning, and we've used it to get to where we're at. We've got people, you know, out in the stars and doing all these amazing things. And, you know, to demonstrate, you know, in picking pepino, you know, one of the little things, there's a scientist out there, Newton or Freud or John Wayne, I don't know, one of those scientists out there that talked about the science of redistribution. And when you're out there with your buckets, 50 cents a bucket was back in my day. 55 cents a bucket, you know, towards the end of the summer when, you know, there was less pepino to pick. But you'd get your 4 or 5 buckets and you'd walk down to the end of the row and you'd drop a bucket, right? You go down there and drop a bucket, quarter of the way, halfway, another bucket, get down to the end, you'd have your bucket. And this would be your bucket. This is like your armor. This is like your suit of armor. This is like your equipment. And so you start with that bucket and you get over to the next bucket, and about 3/4 of the way full, someone told you, hey, there's that John Wayne guy, that scientist that talked about the science of redistribution. Dump it real fast in the bucket and it creates a full bucket. So you get there, 3/4 of a bucket, dump it real fast, and now you have a full bucket, right? You've actually playing your hand. You're getting 55 cents for 3/4 of a bucket, not a full bucket. You're ahead of the game. So you see, but the thing of it is that you couldn't do that overtly. You had to be covert. Because if the bosses and the patron saw that stuff, they'd get on you. They'd get on you and say, hey, don't be cheating the system. That's how tough it was. We weren't getting minimum wage. We were doing 50 cents a bucket, but we were getting our hustle on. Hustling the hustlers, and we were learning from that. Yeah, we were uncomfortable, but we learned so much from that situation. We have the capacity. We have the intelligence. What it is that we just don't have the exposure, don't have the access, limited. They label us as at-risk students. At-risk students. This program attacks that notion, sets us off on a new trajectory. Says, okay, you're at risk. We're going to get you involved and get you engaged through education, get you involved and give you programs so that you can be a kid again. And as a kid, when I was 5 and when I was 6, I remember my bus driver, Leo the Lion. He was African American. And when I was 5, I never had exposure to African American except Leo the Lion. He was like 6 foot, and he was 6'6" with the afro. He looked like Link from Mod Squad. He was a really cool cat, really smooth, nice guy. He said, hey, get on the bus, let's go. And then there was the Chicano trailblazer, El Jarafe. He was about 6'8". I'd never seen a Chicano 6'8" before. Tall, lanky. I always thought it was Danny Santos for the longest time. I finally asked him like 3 years ago because I knew his work in Head Start. I go, were you El Jarafe? He's like, no, that wasn't me, it was somebody else. I'd like to find out who that was. But my point is that what OCDC, Head Start, Migrant Ed did for me was it allowed me to be a kid. An opportunity, a respite, a break from Los Files, from El Campo, from Pepino, from La Mora, from La Fresa. It allowed me to go to Linfield. I don't know how we got there. We got there on the bus. I don't know why we found time, but we got there. And we got to be exposed to other kids in college and learn about school and education and play. It made me feel good. It helped me out. And without Migrant Ed, without Head Start, without that influence, I would not be here today advising the governor, providing this perspective of Pepino when we make that policy decision. Whether we choose to go with restoring drivers' rights for undocumented residents. I bring this perspective. There's not many out there. In the 40 years that we've had here, we've had these victories. We need more. We need more astronauts. We need more policy advisors. We need governors. We need doctors. We need astronauts. We need the whole thing. And that's what the next 40 years looks like to me in the global economy. We need all of these chavalitos, Junior that's here, Jose, everybody else. We need them all to live and dream and to be able to leverage those talents. They have the intelligentsia. They have the perspective. They just need the access. They need the push. They need the love that we all have in here. We need them in big numbers. So with that, you have these envelopes here. Please help us give more. Create more opportunities for the brightness that's ahead of us. You've already paid with the sponsor, but I'm going to ask you to come out and write a check with whatever you have. I myself, I'm a public servant. I don't make a lot of money. I have a big heart, but I'm on record for $250. Who's with me for $250 right now, based on what you've seen tonight? Anybody out here? Can I have a show of hands? Somebody, don't leave me hanging by myself. Tony, who's this gentleman right here? Give him a round of applause. Can you take a stand? Make my match right there. The kids need it. We've got 40 more years. The global economy needs us. We cannot leave our kids behind. These kids are our future, all kids, inclusive. We need those talents. It's how we're going to thrive. We got to bring down the employment rates. We got to improve our education rates. We got to improve our GDP, our GNP in a global economy. And we're not going to have that if we don't have these kids graduating and thriving, not just in high school, but in college and competing. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a great evening. Gracias.
Wow, I hope you're inspired as much as I am during this night. We have one more person to recognize. She has worked so hard in putting this spectacular event together for all of us to enjoy. Please join me in thanking Emily Olson for all of her contributions to the gala. Emily. Thank you, Emily. And we want to thank you all for your generosity and especially to our sponsors, such as US Bank. And thank you so much. Buenas noches y muchas gracias.